Hi and welcome to the Malat Cookery channel. So on our the Malat Facebook group, and there's a link in the description if you want to join that, I would highly recommend it. One of the members lives in California, used to live in the UK, can't seem to get hold of Jaffa Cakes, got a particular craving for Jaffa Cakes at the moment, and asked whether it was easy to actually make them at home. Well, I go as far as to say that Jaffa Cakes are probably easier and quicker to make at home, as long as obviously you've got the ingredients, than it is to get in the car, go to the store and actually buy some. So we're going to make some delicious Jaffa Cakes today. It is a very, very easy recipe to follow. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end of the video, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today's recipe. So what we're going to need for this recipe, I've got 2 medium-sized free-range eggs which have been beaten. I've got 50 grams of caster sugar, 50 grams of plain flour or all-purpose flour, 120 grams of dark chocolate. I'm going to be using some orange marmalade as well. Now some recipes call for orange jelly to be used, or blocks of jelly. For me that's disgusting. What I'm after when I'm doing these Jaffa Cakes is once they've been in the fridge and set, you get the hard crunch through the chocolate itself, and then the marmalade will give you that almost like a soft centre. If you use jelly, which you can do, orange jelly, what will happen is, for me anyway, you go through the hard crunch of the chocolate and then straight into a solid block of orange. It's just disgusting. So that's why I use marmalade and not jelly. I'm also going to be using some paper cupcake containers. The reason I use those, you probably won't see that in any other recipe, is when we're adding the chocolate to the sponge once it's set and it has obviously the orange marmalade on top, what can happen is the chocolate will then go down the side of the Jaffa Cake and then sort of drip onto the floor, and it just makes the Jaffa Cake look very untidy. If we make the Jaffa Cakes in the paper cupcake containers, what happens is when we put the chocolate on top, it obviously flows like it would do normally, but it stops at the edge of the paper. So when we take the paper off, it looks a lot more professional and it's just a lot easier to do. I'm also going to be using an electric whisk as well. You can use a hand whisk if you like. I just find the electric whisk a lot easier. So the first thing we need to make is the sponge. So I've got my 2 medium-sized beaten eggs. I'm going to add the caster sugar into that and then use the electric whisk, and I'm just going to whisk this for about 4 minutes until it goes from a deep yellow colour to a pale yellow colour and becomes light and fluffy, and that's when you know it's done. Okay, so this mixture is now pale, it's light and fluffy, it's ready for the flour. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sieving the flour into the egg mixture. We're going to do it a little bit at a time and use a spatula just to fold that in gently. We want to get rid of all the lumps obviously and fold the and mix the flour in correctly. What we don't want to do is knock too much of the air out of the mixture. We just need to retain this light fluffiness. So that's all of the flour mixed in now. The next thing we're going to do is fill the cupcakes. But first I'm going to turn the oven on and we're going to preheat the oven to 180 degrees centigrade. So our oven's on, we've got our pastry cases in. What I'm going to be adding with a tablespoon is 1 large tablespoon of mixture in each of the paper cases. We don't want any more than that, because what we're trying to produce is actually almost like a sponge disc and not a full-on cake. So that's the mixture in. You can take those two out. So we actually got 10. We'll get 10 Jaffa cakes from this. As I said, this is going into a preheated oven, 180 degrees centigrade now, and we're going to leave those in for between 10 and 12 minutes. The way we'll know it's cooked is after about 10 minutes, I'm going to take it out, just press gently on the centre of one of the Jaffa cake or the sponge mixes, and if you get an indentation and it springs back, then you know that the sponge is actually done. If the indentation goes in and stays in, just leave the sponge mixture in the oven for another couple of minutes. So the sponge base for the Jaffa cakes is done. The next thing we need to do is top these off with the marmalade. So just a teaspoon of marmalade sat right in the centre, and just push that down. So what we're looking to create is just a disc of marmalade in the centre with a sponge border around the outside, about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. Because the sponge is still hot, you can always come back to them once you've done a few, because the marmalade will start to melt a little bit, and it'll be a lot easier to work with. So now we've got our marmalade discs on top, the next thing to do is to actually melt the chocolate. So there are two ways to do this. What I would consider to be the hard way and the easy way. So the hard way is to create what's called a bain-marie, which is a saucepan, 2 or 3 centimeters of simmering water with a heat-proof dish placed over the top. We then place the chocolate into the dish and move the chocolate around until it melts. Problem with that is if the simmering water touches the base of the heat-proof dish, or if steam escapes out of the side of the dish and into the chocolate can crystallise. If you've got a microwave oven, then that's, as far as I'm concerned, the easy way, and the way I'll be doing it is we put the microwave oven on full power and we turn it on for 1 minute and 40 seconds, and then the chocolate will be perfectly melted. So that's our chocolate done in the microwave, 1 minute and 40 seconds. And just move this around now until all of the pieces melt. Trust me, this is a lot easier than doing a bain-marie. Okay, so now we're ready to cover the Jaffa cakes. About a teaspoon, and just move that melted chocolate around so that it covers the entire upper surface of the Jaffa cake itself. And this is where these paper cases really come into their own, because without those, as I said before, the chocolate would just drip over the side and wouldn't look that great. Okay, so that's the Jaffa Cakes covered with the chocolate. So what I'm going to do now, if I remember, is once the Jaffa Cakes have been placed into the fridge, which is what we're going to do now to allow the chocolate to set, after about 40 minutes, I'm going to take them from the fridge and go over the top with the back of a fork just to create some lines in the chocolate, again just to make them look a little bit more presentable. Sometimes I remember to do that, sometimes I don't. It doesn't really matter if you don't. If I try and do that now, all that will happen is we'll get the lines and then the chocolate will just merge together again. So it has to be sat in the fridge for a little bit of time, and normally it's around 40 minutes. So once these have sat in the fridge, we'll come back and I'll take the paper cases off out from the outside, and then I'll show you exactly what they look like. So our Jaffa Cakes are just about set. So let me show you one of these. You can see how these paper cases keep everything nice and neat. It was about 25 minutes in the fridge before I was able to start just to make some lines in the top. So it didn't take as long as I thought it would. We'll just show you the actual inside of the Jaffa Cake. So we've got this hard outer shell from the chocolate, the dark chocolate. We've got this soft orange marmalade at the top, and then this really soft and light sponge at the bottom. Absolutely gorgeous. So how easy are Jaffa Cakes to make? And guarantee once you've made these, you'll always have second thoughts about going to buy some from the store. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit that like button. Thank you very much for watching.